7 years ago, one of my coworkers said that it is impossible to have a good credit score when you're young. She looked right at me and she said, "Right, what's the point of even trying?" And this to me was such a depressing thing to hear. She felt so defeated, like she had just given up to the credit gods and there was nothing she could possibly do to improve her situation. Now, at the time, I hadn't started my personal finance journey, and I think I had a credit score that was in the mid to low 600s, so I wasn't in too good of a spot either. Far from it, actually, but I just knew that this sentiment she had around her credit score could not possibly be true. Since then, I've gone on my own personal finance journey. I've learned a lot about credit, and I've managed to increase my score up over 800. So I know it's possible. If you're anything like my coworker and you're in a tough spot, credit scores in the gutter, I want you to know two things. One, you are not alone. This shit is hard for everyone. And two, you have made the first step in improving your credit score by clicking on this video. You've got to do the learning before you can increase your score. So watch the rest of the video. You're going to have all the tools you need to increase your score. In this video, I'm going to cover the different factors that make up your credit score. I'm going to break down the credit tiers, and then I'm also going to debunk a few credit myths before the end, where I will share my 2 tips to improve your credit score. And these are my 2 personal tips. You could go out and find all the generic ones, but these are the 2 that I use personally that help me improve my score from somewhere in the 600s to 800 plus. All right, let's break down this credit score beast into bite-sized pieces. I want you to think of your credit score like a recipe. Just like how any great dish needs the right mix of ingredients, your credit score needs the right mix of ingredients or factors. The number 1 factor is going to be your payment history. This is the heavy hitter of your credit score. It's like showing up to work on time every day. If you consistently pay your bills on time and you don't miss any payments, you're in a good spot. But you start missing a couple of days of work here and there, start missing a few payments, you're not going to be in a good spot. So this makes up 35%. This is the most important factor in your credit score because it's the largest. The second factor in your credit score is your credit utilization. This makes up 30% of your credit score. Imagine your credit limit is your favorite all-you-can-eat buffet. If you have a favorite all-you-can-eat buffet, I question your judgment, but for the sake of this analogy, let's say you have one. Just because you can't eat everything at the buffet doesn't mean that you should. Using 30% of your available credit is like having a sensible portion at the buffet. So just because you have a $10,000 credit limit doesn't mean that you should use $10,000 of your credit limit. You should use $3,000 or less, 30% or less. And ideally, you want to be at 0% because you don't want to be carrying any sort of balance over month to month. So credit utilization makes up 30% of your score. It is the second most important factor in your credit score. Third is the length of your credit history. This is going to make up 15% of your credit score. This is like the fine wine of your credit score because it gets better with age. It's also the least in your control. If you are a young person in your teens, early 20s, even early 30s if you started later on in the game, it's going to be hard to have a good length of credit history because you just haven't been in the game long enough. If you don't have a good length of credit history, all you can do is keep these accounts open and in good standing until they get into that good range, which is 7 years and up. It's going to be hard for you to break that 800 barrier, but you're still going to be able to be in that mid to high 700 range, no problem. And I'll show you guys a little bit later on, I have hit over an 800 with poor length of credit history. So it is possible, it's just not as likely. The fourth ingredient in this credit score recipe is going to be your credit mix. This is making up 10% of your credit score, and you can think of this kind of like your financial portfolio. You want to have a diversified portfolio. Lenders want to see that you have managed multiple different types of credit. So you have credit cards, auto loans, student loans, personal loans, mortgages, you name it. They want to see a diverse range and that you've managed all of them responsibly. This is going to make up 10% of your credit score. Last but not least, we've got new credit inquiries. This makes up 10% of your credit score. And this is kind of like dating. If you're going on a few dates here and there, submitting a few credit applications here and there, it's not a problem. But if you're going on dates every day with new people, submitting a ton of credit applications, it's going to raise some eyebrows. Lenders want to see that you're only occasionally applying for new credit and it doesn't look like you're constantly reaching for more and more credit. So those are the ingredients that make up this credit score recipe. If you don't have them all, you're not going to have as good of a credit score as you could. Now let's talk about where you stand in the credit score game. It's kind of like a video game, different levels, unlocking different financial perks. So level 1 is 300 to 579. And at this level, you are poor. They did not come up with a cute name for this level. You are just straight up poor. At this level, most traditional lenders are not going to approve your applications. If you do get approved for credit, it's going to come at significantly higher interest rates. Credit cards are going to be over 25%. Auto loans are going to be 15 to 20%. And mortgage rates are going to be 4 to 6% higher than the best rates. You might also need to put down security deposits on utilities and cell phone contracts, and landlords are going to most likely require higher security deposit or cosigner when you're applying for a place. The next level is 580 to 669, and this is the fair level. At this point, you've unlocked the ability to get approved for some credit cards, although they might still come with higher rates. You might qualify for store credit cards or credit builder loans at this level. I'd stay away from those, but those are things that you can get approved for at this level of the game. And you're also starting to see lower security deposit levels. So you're making progress on to the next level, which is good. This is going to be that 670 to 739 range. You've unlocked a new weapon at this stage in the game. You get competitive interest rates. We're talking potentially saving thousands on a mortgage or a car loan. Most credit card companies will also welcome you with open arms at this point. You might even score some sign-up bonuses, which is really nice. Landlords also more likely to approve your applications without any extra hassle if you are in this range, and you'll be eligible for personal loans with decent terms. Probably also stay away from those personal loans unless you really need them. That would depend on your financial situation. Talk to a financial advisor. I'm just a guy on the internet. Next up, we've got the very good tier, which is going to be 740 to 799. You've unlocked the lender's favorite achievement here. Lenders are going to be competing for your business. You're going to get some of the best interest rates out there. On a 30-year mortgage, this could end up saving you tens of thousands over the lifetime of that loan. Credit card companies are going to be rolling out the red carpet for you. Expect higher limits and better rewards programs. You might also see lower insurance premiums, which this was news to me when I was doing the research for this video. I hadn't known this before, so this is super cool. And then you'll also just have more negotiating power. You will be able to ask for better terms and sometimes receive better terms when you are at this level in the credit score game. You are not a pro though. The pros are at that 800 to 850 level. At this point, lenders see you as a financial god. They're going to give you whatever you want. Not actually, but you're going to get the absolute best when it comes to interest rates. You're going to get the best credit card offers. You're going to get the best rewards programs. You're going to get instant approvals, so you're not going to have to wait for people to go through your stuff. They're going to see your credit score and be like, yeah, you're amazing. Go ahead, have whatever you want. It's nice at this level. But remember, this is a game. No matter where you are right now in this ranking, you can move up. Each financial decision you make, each responsible credit usage you make is going to increase your score slowly but surely. Now, I know at this point you want my tips. You're like, okay, I understand the factors. I understand the tiers. Just tell me how to increase my score. And we're getting there, but I need to debunk a few myths first because there's some big ones out there that you'll hear people talking about, especially if you ask your friends, that you should know the truth about. The first myth we're going to tackle is that credit cards are bad. This just isn't true. I think YouTube is not YouTube, but personal finance. Like the personal finance space as a whole is kind of split 50-50 on this. Some people take their credit cards and they've got like 13 of them and they've maximized for every single point and reward they can possibly get. Other people are like adamantly against credit cards. They think they're evil and you should stay away from them by all means. I'd say I fall somewhere in the middle of this spectrum where I don't think you should be spending too much time maximizing your credit card setup and making sure that it works like super optimized for you or however you want to call it. I think it's just a waste of your time and energy. Get a couple credit cards that work well for your life, that you don't really have to think too much about. automate all of the payments and make sure that they're all being used responsibly. So don't obsess over your credit cards and spend a whole bunch of time figuring out how to maximize for every percentage and every point. It's a waste of your time. But also, there's no need to completely avoid them unless you are someone who has irresponsibly used credit cards in the past and you know that it's like an addiction for you and you just can't use one responsibly. If that's the case, you should stay away from them. But I think most people can learn about credit, learn how to use their credit cards responsibly, and then proceed to have it be a good asset in your financial toolbox, right? It's a great way for you to save a little bit of extra money spending on groceries, on gas, on even rent. What's not to love about that? The other great thing about credit cards is they are an easy way for you to build credit history, that length of credit history that we talked about earlier. These are easy for you to get when you're younger before you get a mortgage or a car loan or even student loans. It's a way for you to start increasing your credit score if you use them responsibly before you have to take on any of these bigger loans that come later on in life. So, know yourself. Know if you have a problem with credit cards, stay away from them. But if you don't, if you use them responsibly, credit cards are great. The second myth is that debts are erased once you've paid them off. And this is just not true. Debts will remain on your credit report for up to 10 years. But this is not a bad thing. These debts show lenders that you have paid off your debts in the past, and they can trust you to pay off their debt in the future. However, negative marks like missed payments can also stick around for up to 7 years. So, the nice thing about having your debts stick around this long as well is that it turns that potential negative, right, that missed payment on that debt, into a positive if you end up paying that debt off down the line. So, this is a good thing. Just wanted you to hear that because you might hear otherwise. Now you have the truth. On to the next. The third myth is that carrying a balance will improve your score. And this is just flat out wrong. This is like the flat earth of credit myths. Carrying a balance means you're paying interest often at high rates. It's like paying a stupidity tax on every purchase you make, because why would you pay more when you don't have to pay more? Carrying a balance is only making you pay more money. Kind of need a stupidity tax for flat earthers too. Sorry if any of you are, but it is what it is. High credit utilization also negatively impacts your score. And so if you are carrying a balance, inevitably that's going to raise your credit utilization. So there's nothing good about carrying a balance. Don't carry a balance. Pay your card off in full. The last credit myth I'm going to go over today is that you should close your credit cards when you are not using them anymore. And this is a big mistake. Length of credit history, like we mentioned earlier, accounts for 15% of your credit score. So closing old accounts can shorten the length of your credit history and lower your score as a result. Closing a card also reduces your total available credit limit, which means that if you have a balance on any other card, which obviously you shouldn't have, we want to clear all those balances each month. But if you are carrying a balance, it's going to increase your credit utilization ratio if you close a card. And so this is also going to negatively impact your score. If the card has no annual fee, there's little downside to keeping it open. I recommend taking a small subscription, Netflix, Spotify, whatever you use, put it on that card just to keep it active. If you do have a card that has a high annual fee that you don't want to use anymore, that would be a situation where it would make sense to close it because you do want to save money on that annual fee. But understanding these myths and the truths behind them is just going to help you from getting lost in the sauce when you hear people talking about credit and credit cards and this, that, and the third, especially your uninformed friends. Don't listen to them. Okay, so you've made it to the good part of the video. I'm going to share with you the two things that I think really made the biggest impact on my personal credit building journey. The first and foremost, I've preached this in past videos in unrelated topics, but it's all related. Track your spending religiously. Every single purchase that you make, categorize it, put it into a spreadsheet or into one of the budgeting apps like Mint or YNAB. I personally use a spreadsheet. I go in at the end of the month, I track every single expense from that month. I put it into a category. My categories are personal to me, but at the end of the month, I then have a complete breakdown of where every single dollar went. This is going to help you tremendously when it comes to finding those areas in your budget, or in your spending rather, where you are overspending and you're spending more than you want to, more than you should. In those areas, make sure you're cutting back. Put that extra money towards your credit card debt, your auto loans, your student loans, your mortgage, um, or towards investing. Depends on your financial situation, obviously. But this, while not directly tied to improving your credit score, is going to make the biggest impact. It's going to be a trickle down effect. Tracking your spending forces you to be a lot more honest with your finances. One of the things that I think is really dangerous about credit cards is that it can kind of be treated as fun money. It shouldn't be, but you all of a sudden have this limit of X amount of thousands of dollars that you can spend and you can just pay it off later. But if you're tracking every dollar that you spend, you have to come to terms with, okay, I really did spend that much on Amazon, or I did spend that much eating out, or I did spend that much on clothes. Forces you to be honest about your money. So it's going to help you cut back on spending, which will in turn allow you to pay more off on your credit cards if you are carrying a balance right now and are trying to get out of that, or you can funnel that money into investments or other debts. Either way, it's going to free up money that can then be used to help improve your credit score. So track your spending. I've actually linked below to the tracker that I use. I created for myself. I use it personally, but I also made a template for you guys. It's completely free, and that's down below in the description. My second tip, and this one is huge, pay your card off weekly or bi-weekly, especially if you are carrying a balance. Every time you get a paycheck, so if you're getting paid weekly, if you're getting paid bi-weekly, you do the math, pay your credit card off first. You get your check, go straight to your credit card, pay off the balance in full. This helps you avoid that end of the month bill that is larger than you expected because one week you spent a little bit more and you weren't thinking about it. And it hits at the end of the month and you're like, well, I can't. That's way too much money. I can't spend all that right now. I'll pay it off at the end of the month. Pay it off weekly. It's going to be smaller chunks. It's a lot easier to pay $200 off than it is to pay $1,000 off at the end of the month, right? So mentally, this is going to be a huge help. It's going to make it feel a lot less demoralizing when you have to pay your credit card off. And similar to tracking your money, this is going to help keep you honest. If you spent a bit more than you should have last week, it's good to know this week as opposed to at the end of the month so that you can then plan the rest of the month accordingly so that you don't overspend. I think both of these tips will be really helpful if you are trying to increase your credit score right now, or even if you're just trying to keep your credit score where it's at. Maybe you already have a great credit score. Don't know why you're watching this video, but thank you for being here, I guess. Look, I get it. Building credit can feel super daunting, especially if you have a lower score. I remember feeling like, how the hell am I supposed to get from 630 to 800 plus like that? And it didn't feel like I was doing too much of anything wrong, but I didn't know all this information that I just shared with you today. And learning it was the first step, and then implementing it and testing out, figuring out what works for me. Because these 2 tips that I gave you at the end, try them. They might not work for you the same way they worked for me. So go find other YouTubers, watch other YouTube videos on building credit, and figure out what works for you. Because everyone's personal finance journey is going to be a little bit different. Don't be like my coworker from the beginning. Don't be defeated. It is not the end of the world. If you have a low credit score now, you've got the tools. Start putting them to work, and slowly but surely your credit score is going to increase, and you'll find yourself in a much better spot a year or 2 down the road. If you have any questions, anything I didn't cover, go ahead and drop those down in the comments below. The only comments that I will not be replying to are those that tell me I look like Delonte West. Come on, that's cold. That's cold. Steph Curry, I get, that's cool. I can fuck with that. But Delonte West, man, that hurt. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.